All right, good evening, Oriole Nation. Welcome to the October 28th NFDL board meeting. We'll get started just momentarily. We need to get Miss Maria.
We all set up on there?
Yeah, just got to get this.
Yeah.
Can you hear us?
We don't? Good, over you?
Awesome, great. We're just gonna put you to the side just for a little while, so bear with us until we get to your point, okay? All right, cool. That's what I want. There it is. Good. Okay, folks. We are ready.
We good?
Yeah.
So you're first up. So, all right, we are back from closed session, back into open session. So our next item is board mission statement and agreements.
All right, so yeah, absolutely. Our board mission statement is we will develop policy that is representative of our community, set goals, and lead our district by collaborating. And our beliefs are stand up and own it. We are one and courage to grow. Stand up and own it is really about owning our choices and our response in the work that we get to do every single day. We are one is coming together as a full group to embody what we are and lean in and help each other be the best versions of each other. And then finally, the courage to grow is each day we get to learn a little bit, or at least try to learn a little bit more, and do it courageously, because sometimes that's not so easy to at least be open and willing to be checking something different that they might not have normally seen. So those are our three: stand up and own it, we are one, and courage to grow as we work together tonight.
Awesome, thank you. Our next item is consent agenda. We have 3 items listed, but going to strike number 2, approval of the October 21st, 2024 annual meeting minutes, because we do not need to do that. So we actually just have 2 items that we're going to approve for our consent agenda. First is approval of September 23rd, 2024 regular board meeting minutes. And then additionally, the treasurer's report that are both found in our packets. So look for a motion to approve consent agenda, those 2 items.
So moved.
Okay. And then roll when you're ready, Terry.
All right. Hoffner?
Yes.
Maffey?
Yes.
Yeager, yes. Huck?
Yes.
Getterman?
Yes. All right, our next item is board members share a moment of pride. If anyone would like to go first.
I'll start.
All right.
It's a little dated, but a few weeks ago, I think Bessie Allen Middle School got the shout out on CNN 10. You guys remember that? But it was pretty cool.
Very cool.
I see there's pictures passed out of the trunk or treat. I was gonna mention that we had a community session that day, so we walked through there and it was packed, so that was a great turnout. And then, last year, there's a Park Family Foundation that donated to the Trefford Center. And I don't know if Tiffany's here.
Yeah.
So Tiffany and her team put together an application again this year, and I just heard that, they're getting $7,500 donation from that Park Family Foundation again, so that was great news, and I appreciate those guys putting it together.
Nice. Yeah, I agree. I was gonna mention this, and the picture shows that it was a packed house. Interested to see when the candy ran out, because it had to go on quick. And then the extra piece is around this weekend, I think, is the play, the production that we have. So just best of luck to everyone that's involved with that.
About 3 weeks ago, I was able to attend the Walk to End Alzheimer's, and members of the North Fond du Lac Symphonic Band were there to perform, and they were there at the beginning of the walk and also at the end to greet walkers when they ended So that was cool. I just wanted to give them a shout out for being there. They were the only area high school band invited, so it's kind of neat to see them there.
All right, then I had a reason to be in here right before lunch to see Ivan. I had some problems with my iPad, and so I hung around to check out the servery and the way the lunch works and the additional space and everything. And that was really awesome to see how different it was and how happy the kitchen staff was having their space, and students lining up and going through and grabbing all of the best seats in the new addition and things like that. So that was really cool. And then I also came to the volleyball breast cancer pink out night, and everything about it that it implies is awesome and what the kids did. But what struck me was the enthusiasm that they had, the students, and then even the players on the bench that unfortunately weren't doing very well, but at the score point, they were all jumping up and clapping and cheering and doing the little volleyball thing they always do at each point. So that was really cool to see. It's been a tough season, I understand, for them, and to still have that enthusiasm late in the season was great.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone, for sharing. Our next item is Horseman High School Student Council. So,
Alrighty, good evening. Oh, sorry.
no, you're fine. Go right ahead.
We have quite a bit today. Alright, so as seen with the pictures, the Student Council had a very successful trunk or treat event, which was held here at the parking lot on Monday, October 21st. Our winners from the trunk or treat event, best costume winners was Barbie themed, which included Ayla Arndt, Morgan Fowler, Lady Ovando, and Kelsey Forsyth. The overall favorite car was the Encanto themed with Kimberly Diaz, Natalie Martinez, Ellen Ramirez, Aranza Morales, and Giselle Prudencio. Scariest costume winners, Scary Clowns was the theme, with Daphne Thornton, Chloe Brockman, and Adrena Furman. Our next thing is Student Council's Turf Wars begins November 4th through the 28th. Money we raise go directly to the children in the North Fond du Lac community and will be collected every Monday from homerooms. We purchase Christmas gifts and other needed items through the Friendship Angel Tree. Grade level homerooms compete against each other, seeing how much money can be raised. Winners of each grade level receive daily bars. And about last year's average was about $1,500, which was raised. Upcoming events for Student Council include Secret Santa and shopping for the Friendship Angel Tree. Students will also be participating in Wing Fling, which is like if your ticket is drawn, you shoot a half-court shot. If you make it, you earn, I think it's like 6 free wings from Buffalo Wild Wings. We usually do those every home game. So yeah, there's more to come on that. Wing Fling will be held by Student Council, NHS, and Key Club almost every home game. Tickets will be sold to raise money for each of the respective clubs' legacy accounts. The next thing is the annual fall musical is this weekend, You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown. Friday and Saturday are 7 p.m. showings, and Sunday is at 2 p.m. We would love for you to come and watch. It's been very fun, so.
How's the week going?
What was that?
How's the week going? I know this is a big week.
Pretty good. Yeah, today was our first night, like staying after school. I promise you this is not an outfit I wear on the daily. This is my costume for it.
So you're Charlie Brown right now. I'm just kidding.
I'm Linus.
Yeah, good.
I would like to hand it off to our co-president of our high school ski club, Madeline Langoff.
Okay, hi everyone. My name's Maddie. I'm the co-president of Key Club, and I'd like to share with you about the Feed My Starving Children's trip that the NHS and Key Club members went on. So there were a total of 67 participants from both Key Club and NHS that attended this trip. A total of 31 hours and 30 minutes was given to the Key Club members. And then during this trip, we packed meals for third world countries. During this trip, we packed 33,480 meals in 150 boxes. This is the equivalent to 91 children that will be fed a meal for 1 full year, which is pretty awesome. That's the most we've ever gotten. So that was awesome. And then just to wrap this up, this was my 3rd year that I've been on this trip. It's amazing. It's my favorite trip. I'm glad that this was my last time that I got to do it with this group, but knowing that I can continue to do it, I can always sign up for Feed My Starving Children. It's a great impact. I think everybody should do it, and it's a great way to bring the clubs together. So yeah, any questions on it?
33,000?
Mhm.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
In 2 hours.
In
That's,
Georgia.
yeah, great work.
So where is that done?
It's done in Sheboygan Falls,
Okay.
at church, yeah.
At a church, okay.
Mhm, yeah.
And who organizes it? Do you, as, Key Club, does Key Club make that all happen, or are you?
We do it every year,
Okay.
normally around the same week. We always do it homecoming week, but this week, because homecoming was so much earlier, but we
Mhm.
always do it on the same day. She organizes it through the church, but we always go. It's pretty awesome. We do it with a bunch of different schools. There's always other schools there, so yeah.
And do you know what countries the food goes to, or?
This year it went to Hades.
Okay,
So yeah,
nice.
pretty great.
It's awesome, Maddie.
Very nice.
Thank you, Maddie.
Thank you.
Alrighty, on Tuesday, October 22nd, Horseman High School had their fall annual choir concert. We had roughly about 200 plus community members come out and support our choir group. The National Honor Society recently started their 2024-2025 elementary reading program. All members have a date and time in which they are reading to a given grade level. They usually go read a story and then create a craft with them. I know a lot of the groups is with kindergartners or 1st graders. And then that'll be happening for a little bit more while here. For our student athletics, he was congratulated to our boys soccer team on winning their 2nd flyweight conference title in a row. Kelsey Forsyth was the girls cross country flyweight conference champion a couple weeks ago as they prepare for their postseason competitions. Winter season is quickly approaching and students are encouraged to sign up for the desired event. And thank you all for allowing me to share a few of the many great things happening at the high school right now. Any questions?
That's a busy month.
How long are you here this evening?
Till like 9:30.
That's good. Did they bring food in for you all?
Yeah, we supply, the parents supply a meal each week
Okay.
or every day until like Friday. So yeah, my mom made dinner tonight.
Nice. What'd she make?
Like these taquito things.
Okay, so we can come over after
Yeah,
this?
when does that end?
Thank you, Luis. We appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you. Good luck the rest of the night.
Thank you.
Yeah. Alrighty. Our next item is Horseman High School share out, so.
That was it.
That was it?
Maddie's in there,
Okay,
yeah.
gotcha. Then we'll go to the clerk's report.
Alright. The clerk's report has donations for Backpack Buddies. Beth Dardis and Trevor families donated some food. Wayne and Janice Shingen donated $100, and Beans and Bites donated $250. And that's the clerk's report.
Excellent. Thank you to all that made a donation, and Terry, thanks for reading that. Our next item is citizens comment. I'll give an opportunity for anyone in the room that would like to share a message with the board. So I'll pause to see if there are anyone. All right, I think we're good. Next item is superintendent's report, so I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, thank you, John. Appreciate it. We're gonna run through our quarterly principal share outs on the continuous improvement. And so we're gonna have you all just share a little bit, both from the academic and emotional, and then also that behavioral and attendance. Just so everybody knows on the board right now, within the academic zone, with our assessment right now, since we shifted over to Ames Web, there has been a lot of different things we're trying to walk through. So not all of our data, this is just a disclaimer for everything, not all of our data is in right now. And so you might hear a lot of that tonight, and that's just where we're at right now. That's our current state. But you're gonna hear more, obviously, when we come back in the winter itself. So just prefacing that before we get into the work, because they've all been doing a lot of work, but some of the stuff is just on hold based on where that assessment's at right now. Okay. So I'm gonna turn it over to Tiffany first, because she's got to go and play for the musical right after this. So
Trefford Way, on the way.
So like Matt just said, we are not done with our Ames Web assessments yet. We started it last week. We're hoping to wrap up this week and then really dig into our data. We do know that at Trefford Way, we really want to focus on literacy again this year. We started to see some growth last year, not as much as we were hoping to get to, but it's definitely an area we want to continue to see growth and movement. So I did put in my report last year's scores. So the spring of last year with STAR, we had 31% of our students who were performing at the 50th percentile or higher. And then digging into our board exam data from last year, we had 24% of our students, which were 3rd through 8th grade, at or above the 50th percentile. So just definitely we're seeing that we'd like to see some growth. So we plan to dig into Ames Web, but also when we were digging into our results from both of those assessments last year, we really were looking for common themes, common threads. Writing seemed to come up a lot right now. So, but again, once we get Ames Web, we'll dig into that data too and see if it matches. And then we'll pick 1 to 2 instructional strategies to focus on school-wide to help move our literacy needle throughout the school year. So some ideas like right now, it might be like a nonfiction writing or annotated notes or something with vocabulary. So really seeing what is the test telling us, what is a strategy that we can all commit to, and then using that strategy K-8, but then also across subject areas. So if we do nonfiction writing, we're gonna be writing in art, we'll be writing in phys ed, we'll be writing in music class. So incorporating that strategy throughout all subjects, K-8 at Trefford Way. So we're excited to really dig in and find out what is that common theme we're seeing so we can narrow in our focus area. But in the meantime, with writing, it's just coincidence that she's here tonight, but I was reaching out to Jen Towell, who's our literacy coach for the district, and she is ready to lead a book study for us on the writing revolution and just had some really good ideas. We're excited to dig into that with her and find out ways that we can incorporate writing and improve writing at Trefford Way. So I will have a goal for you at some point once we have our baseline data, but I didn't want to set a goal without having that baseline data there. If you do look at the report, I also did include some of our survey results from safe and emotionally healthy schools. I won't read through that to you, but we will be digging into that with staff as well and really figuring out what focus area we want.
Can I just share something about the survey itself? There's only 4 options or 1 or 2. In the past, there's no Likert scale. We removed the NA. So you either have strongly, and then you have agree, and then you have disagree or strongly disagree. So it's not a 5-point scale. And so the favorable are the top 2 on that, and the non-favorable. And that's when they say 85% favorable.
Yeah.
That's those top 2 in those bars, and there's no NA. Okay? Great.
Any questions? Anything happening in Trefford Way?
You said for the results on the survey, you just got those? Is that
Yeah, we just took that with the survey, so I do know that we had 40 of our 43 students took the survey, so we got 93% turnout, so we feel good about the results that were there, and then as staff, we're gonna dig into those results and figure out, make some plans for some of those lower percentage areas and how we can get student voice in there.
All right, thanks.
Yeah.
Percent's still pretty good. The only one that's low is, are you excited to go to school? I think that we go over there.
And we were saying that in our board meeting too, like, we still have to have more from the kids, what can we do to make it a little more exciting for you, or we have some viable options?
I mean, that's a great thing. Is like, how do we get our students to say, I want to be here?
Yeah.
Right? And I think that's our overall goal, to get to that point where I want to come to school. And same with our staff. Like, we want to be here because this is a place that we want to learn and grow together. And I truly believe we can get there as a community. So awesome stuff so far. Yeah. Thanks, Tiffany.
Thanks.
Any takers for next up? Let me see who we got here next. This FLC. Okay.
All right, so like Matt said, we do not have all of our data yet really concrete enough to create a specific goal within ELA. So you will see a tentative one up there, but I did want to circle back to our math data because that was our SLO or our building goal last year. So one of the trends that we were looking at over time is that percent of students who were below basic or in that developing category. So you can see in 2021, we had 42% of our students who were in that lowest category. So as we've become more familiar with our tool and gotten stronger in some of those instructional strategies, I am very proud to say that that number is now at 14.9% in that percent that's below basic, which now in the forward exam, they changed the language a little bit, so now that will be this developing. So moving forward, even though our goal is very much, our focus right now is going to be on ELA, I wanted to share just kind of that growth over time because we're really having to remind ourselves this year as we're really navigating a lot of those pain points with adopting a new curriculum and really looking at how we are instructing in that ELA category. So hopefully that number just continues to decrease because as that number decreases, achievement increases. Our three kind of focus areas at FLC in terms of learning and academics are in that ELA space. So the first goal is really just focusing on that tier 1 implementation of CKLA. So you can see there that we have some professional development opportunities that we have been working with Amplify, which is the rep that represents CKLA. So we had one training already on 10/11. We'll have another opportunity coming up on 3/14, and then a coaching and debriefing session in January. We are finding with our staff, though, with anything new, that they're craving more and more in this space in terms of how to be effective, because this has been a whole new ballgame for us. So not only is the tool different, but really the instruction is significantly different also. So we're very used to more of that balanced literacy approach, so a workshop model. All of our instruction now is much more explicit and direct. So not only is the tool different, but how we're teaching and how we're approaching ELA in general has been a huge learning curve for us as well. So a lot of learning, a lot of conversations during grade level meetings and check-ins. I think all of our conversations tend to kind of focus in that space, rightfully so. So we're really trying to make sure that we are supporting our teachers in that space and giving them what they need, although it will definitely be a journey, like we learned with math and bridges when we started off that a couple years ago as well. The other piece is really focusing on our collaborative team time. So that's something that we started as a district last year, but we're kind of moving from like building those habits to really trying to be precise and efficient with that time. So we're looking at our learning targets and really trying to make sure that those are being referenced during lessons. Part of CKLA, which is wonderful, is it has learning targets for you, but there's several of them. So our teams are having to really kind of digest what those are and make sure they're appropriate for our kids during those lessons. The other piece in that bucket is our win time. Win time stands for what I need, or our intervention block. So we have that occurs in every grade level, K-5. It ranges from 30 to 45 minutes, depending on the grade level. We have 2 grade levels who are fully implementing and have been for a couple weeks now, which is awesome. And then we have a couple teams that in the next 2 to 3 weeks, now that our Ames data has been filtering in, they will start working on those plans. So that time is really specific to what our kids need. So we look at all of our kids across the grade level, and we have our reading specialists, we have paraprofessionals, and then we have teachers who are delivering intervention. One thing that I'm also super proud of in that space is we have 1 teacher per grade level who's delivering an intensive intervention. So the amount of kids that we're able to serve outside of just like having 1 reading specialist is really neat to see. And it's done because people have that willingness and they're collaborating together to make that happen. So getting that up and running has been a huge focus for us. So, and that will continue to be as we move throughout the school year. One of the specific strands that we're looking at, and this is based off of forward exam data from last year, focusing on key ideas and details. A lot of the domains in general in ELA are a little bit lower, but as a building, we've kind of decided that this is going to be one of our focus areas. So we've looked at all of the assessments within our new tool and have kind of designed a plan in terms of like reporting and what those data builds look like in EduClimber and on our report cards. So that's given us a focus area as well as we kind of navigate the changes throughout the school year. Depending on what Ames Web tells us too, because that is still a piece that we have to continue to learn more about and see where our kids are falling short. Some of these things might tweak a little bit, but in general, this is kind of our roadmap and our plan for this year for that win time and that collaborative team time. And then the third final thing, we have been really trying to get a handle on our assessments. So Ames Web is new, but CKLA came with an abundance of assessments as well. So Brad calls it hoarding data right now, that we have so much data that we have, which is wonderful, but we're also finding that we're over assessing our kids too. So we have to really kind of find that balance. So as a team, we've been really kind of figuring out like what are our assessments really looking at? What are we doing with that data? And where can we scale back a little bit? Because we have a lot of data, but it's really more about what are we doing with the data that we have and how are we intentional with that. So we have a couple different data days scheduled throughout the year where we'll really dive into those Ames web reports. And then the small piece of Act 20 in winter, we will be, obligated by the state to make sure that any students who are falling below that 25th percentile have a reading plan in place. So with our current structure, with our grade level teachers being able to deliver intervention in that win time, I'm really optimistic that we're going to be able to make that happen. It'll definitely be a lift because it'll be something new for all of us. But I think we have the structure and the right people in place to make it happen. So that's kind of that third and final piece. One more quick celebration. Can I jump back up to math really quick?
Mm-hmm.
We pulled our Ames Web data for 5th grade just before we came here. And the Ames Web breaks it down into some different categories. So when we look at our 5th grade students, we have 8% well below the average, 3% that are below the average, and then 40% who are average, 24% above average, and 24% well above average. So if you think about, that's like almost 80% of our students in math who are considered average and above. So we keep reminding ourselves again that it's going to be a journey with ELA, but knowing that we got there with math, we're really eager to kind of let this year go by and then know that we have 1 year under our belts and things will start looking up. So, any questions about the learning and academics space?
So with the new curriculum, I'm sure there's some frustration and learning curve and all that. But is the overall sense that once we get through that this will be better than where we were before?
Absolutely, yeah. So K1 specifically, what I feel very strongly that our kids have been missing is that explicit and direct instruction in, for example, like decoding words. So our workshop model was a lot of kids like going off and having independent time. So this is much more direct instruction with specific skills that they need. That's come with a few barriers though as well, because we really had to keep like engagement and movement at the forefront, because as you can imagine, elementary kids sitting for long periods of time to receive that direct instruction has some challenges as well. So yes, I think absolutely it's going to be addressing, the science of reading and all of those things that are really, I think, what's causing that gap for our kids. And I will say the content, the social studies and science pieces that are being brought in, our kids are super excited about. Like we were just meeting with a parent tonight, and the kiddo was coming home talking about the Egyptian civilization and like just super excited, and first grader with census. So that's been a really neat shift as well.
Okay. Brett, you ready? Yeah. Is it on here as well, or you want to? Yeah.
Yeah, just talking a little bit about the safe and emotional healthy schools within FLC.
just really looking at our goal of decreasing those ODRs or office discipline referrals. As you see, there's some past data there, just looking at where we are and some of the trends and just trying to figure out what we can do as a school to continue to improve in that space. This year, currently, we have 27 majors and 86 minors. So when you look at those numbers and just kind of looking at where we were last year with 28 majors at this point and 100 minors, we're down about 15 or so. So we're in that right direction of how we're moving down a little bit. When you really dive deep into, what do the majors and minors look like? We're talking about 12 kids at the minor or the major level, 600. So it's really like less than 1% of our kids are receiving majors. So that's a huge win. Same with minors. I mean, you're talking, less than 3% of our kids are getting minors right now. So a lot of good things happening in that space. That happens with that focusing on the data. Obviously, that's one of our goals is really look at what is that data telling us. What are things in our building that are happening that we can help prevent, or what strategies or sports that we need to do. That's looking at edge climber. It's also being a little creative this year. Just looking at more of our SEL team with 20-day periods, looking at what's happening in these 20-day periods with kids and their behaviors, and what are some of those things that we continue to teach and coach that are popping up in those 20 days. That has really helped us catch some of the stuff pretty quick in terms of some of those kids and what those supports look like or need. That's been a big game changer. Focusing on those SEL supports, I'll continue to push that our SEL team, along with our teachers right now, are buying into what is restorative doing and what it's helping for our kids right now. So every morning, our staff starts with restorative circles, conversations to get the day going. Our SEL team helps support that in those spaces. We push in at times to help do circles, whole class circles. We do CPS, as our purple sheets, which talk about labeling skills, trying to get to the root of the problems within the classrooms. We've had a lot of good opportunities with that. Also looking at our cultural playbook, trying to incorporate what is our behavior matrix. Come to FLC and others, you'll see above the line, below the line behaviors, talking about that. Our kids are starting to use some of that language, and that's been helpful too. And then obviously honing in on the positive behaviors. Oftentimes we do get, it's all negative a little bit. It's like, how do we continue to be positive in those spaces, and with bricks and terrific tickets and letters home and calls home to some of those kids that are involved over there. So that's a big piece of the behavior. Attendance wise, this comes back to our conversation we just had before, is how do we get kids to want to be here? Attendance kind of reflects that a little bit in terms of how what are we doing. So as you can see, some of our trends are going up. That's our accuracy. So saying 90%, 93%, 93.7. Our goal is to hit that 95 mark. That's really that sweet spot to say 95% of the times all our kids are in school and in the seat and learning. And how do we do that? Well, that's part of that engagement piece, right? Continue to look at the trends and the data and what it's telling us, but also be creative. And hey, when are we celebrating fall festivals and things like that on days like Monday when we know attendance doesn't look good, right? Like just being creative in those spaces. That's a big piece of it. And then also looking at, how do we continue to engage students and families, communications, our policies, procedures, just shooting stuff out on our School Connect or School Messenger to, just different reminders, the holidays coming up. This is a big time of the year where attendance kind of takes a dip. Just reminders there, just best practices in general. How are we communicating those 5 to 8 day letters? Establishing attendance plans, having parents at the table, they have their voice there to come up with some barriers or other suggestions on how we can continue to improve the attendance for their child. Focus and recognizing good and improved attendance, coming back to the positive. How do we continue to say, hey, your attendance is improving, or hey, you're at 100%, that's amazing. Focusing on personal outreach, just attendance awareness, like just trying to be proactive with our 5K families, and when we do those family nights way off in spring, is bringing attendance into the picture so families have a good understanding of what that is. Just looking at report card attendance, specific resource and support that different students or families would need. There's a lot of barriers that happen in this space, and how do we help and support them to get outside resources along with resources that we have. So, and we're currently doing small group attendance. Erica Harbath, our counselors, pulled some of our kids that struggled last year with attendance, our chronic absentees, and we started small groups with them to try to keep that engagement, encouragement, and support systems in place. And then obviously, like I said, removing some of those barriers, transportation, medical, really working on that one, and then just
some of those supports and resources for our Spanish-speaking families. So that's where we're at.
Any questions? So engagement, you talked about, is that the success? Is that the recipe so far? That's, I mean,
For attendance,
for all you're doing in FLC, I mean, the results speak for the positive movement you're making in so many different spaces. How does that happen? Like, if you were to summarize that real quick.
engagement, how does that happen?
Well, I mean, just what you're doing. How do you get the result that you're doing?
I think it comes with a team effort. I mean, it's everybody leaning on each other really and understanding that our biggest bang for a buck is engagement.
Yeah,
Like, we can't do anything until kids walk through the door.
sure.
So how do we get them in the door? Like our fall festival, different things that we do, that's what excites kids. It excites staff too to get here and say, hey, this is a place I want to eat. Like I'll always sit down with parents, like, the number one thing I want your kid to say is, I want to come back tomorrow.
Yeah.
Like, that's it. That's our goal. Everything else will take care of itself, as you can see, it is. But
Yeah.
that's really what it is. It's just that, that drive to be like, hey, how do we get kids here? That starts with us.
All right, thank you.
All right, moving on. See what we got. Next time, we'll cut all the gaps, so apologize for the, all right, who we got? Mike.
Me.
Yep.
So I'm gonna try to cut this as short and brief as possible, but to provide some context, we have some very great academic wins that we want to celebrate. Over the last 8 years, our average report card score in the state has averaged 72%, which exceeds expectations under the current model of standards. We've experienced in the last 4 years a 64% increase in Ford ELA scores and a 184% increase in Ford math scores over the same period. Obviously, ELA scores are not growing or achieving as much as math is, so we are going to focus on literacy for our SLO this year, in particular reading comprehension and improving reading comprehension. Why reading comprehension? Well, just basically, if you don't understand what you're reading, you're not going to be able to succeed in a classroom setting or in a life setting. Reading comprehension to debunk a myth is not a singular thing. It's not a skill that, oh, we're going to teach reading comprehension and they're going to learn it and it's going to be great. Reading comprehension involves like an assortment of skills and strategies and a lot of other things that interplay. For example, the purpose of why the student's reading it, the motivation behind the student reading it, the interest, the knowledge, the language background, particularly vocabulary, all those things, and skills like decoding, fluency, vocabulary, knowledge and understanding, annotation, inferencing, connecting, visualizing, and discussing, all those things together make up reading comprehension. And our goal for this year is to increase reading comprehension in each grade. Thanks to, first of all, I gotta give a shout out to Gentile, I can give her a standing O, I'd give her one right now, because she helped me and our team develop this SLO. It will rely on a broader assessment strategy, but we are using DIBELS to start to identify the students that are not meeting reading comprehension we take a grade level test and we measured the students that did not meet proficiency and met proficiency at grade level, reading that grade level text. So DIBELS stands for Dynamic Indicators of Basic Early Literacy Skills. It has a high predictive validity rate in terms of helping us understand which students will not be successful if we don't have interventions for them. And also, it's a great progress monitoring tool. We intend to use DIBELS 3 times a year. We already have tested all of our students' text to gen in the DIBELS Reading Comprehension Assessment Tool. And we have determined students that are at proficiency level and students that are not at proficiency level. And we set the goal of taking half of the students who did not meet proficiency at each grade and adding them to the ones that have met proficiency. And that's why we set the goals that we set. That might change depending when we triangulate data with Ames Web and teacher common assessments and all sorts of issues. But for right now, we're setting these as goals for at the end of the year. Like 63% of our students in sixth grade will meet the goal, 64 in seventh, and 67 in eighth. One thing to note is that eighth grade has more students that met the goal than did not meet the goal, and that is reading at grade level proficiency in a grade level text. So basically, what we are doing as a staff is we're gonna be taking professional development monthly, led by Jen, in our stand-up meetings. And we're looking also to university and also areas to teach the following skills: decoding, fluency, previewing the text, active reading, inferencing, annotating, summarizing, visualizing, understanding vocabulary, making connections, and discussing and reflecting on what you read. So I shared with you all like a presentation that gives you like real life examples of what our teachers are doing in the class. It's kind of cool because it started with ELA and they have a whole bunch of strategies that they're doing in each class. And now that's kind of branching out to all of our other subject areas. And through professional development, I hope that we can get all of our, not hope, we will get all of our teachers in any subject area to start teaching reading comprehension skills. So that's the academic side. Any questions on that before I go to the social emotional area?
I guess the only question I have, it's not just specifically for you, but there seems to be a lot of different tests being used. Is that because there's different tests for elementary compared to middle school? I mean, there's no test that gets us across the whole range.
Well, Ames Web will. So Ames Web will be at elementary, middle school, and high school. Now, that's what I was gonna ask you too, Mike, is like Ames Web in addition to.
Yes, we're triangulating like Ames Web results with the DIBELS. We wanted to do DIBELS first because of the difficulties with putting Ames Web out there yet and implementing it. We have tested all of our students, but we ran into a little bit of snags. Obviously, first time doing an assessment. So the data for the fall might not be as reliable. So we're trying to find other sources of data to make sure that we have the right picture of our students and where they're at in reading comprehension. So, but next year, Ames Web for sure. It's a fabulous tool. We're just helping 2 students advance in math because of how they did in Ames Web and how we looked at forward exams and common assessments. So that is an awesome tool, Ames Web is, but we need time to like get used to it and move forward with it. Any other questions? So then when it comes to the safe, emotionally healthy school bucket, we have 3 separate teams. The safety team basically does physical drills, and we have a brand new building, 17,000 square footage of new spaces. So with that comes with new procedures and things like that. So safety team, shout out to Chrissy Walter, who's taking the lead in that to help create these safety drills and plans. And Brad, shout out to Brad as well, because he's worked at the district level for a couple of years with this. SEL team, social emotional learning team, basically they've done lesson plans that tie into social emotional learning as well as cultural playbook tenets using panorama data for the last 3 implementations. And I linked some examples there. They're done during Oriole time, every teacher does it. And then finally, we have monthly grade level meetings with the SEL team and grade level teams to look at students who are exhibiting concerns in the social emotional learning arena. And this is kind of like a reshifting of our priorities in this area, because before it was just student services and administration working. We needed to have the teacher voice. So we have a teacher representative going to each grade level team with administration and student services to talk about students and come up with interventions to help them in that area. And I think that is all that I have. Any questions on the social emotional learning part? And right there, I just put, we did data analysis of the Panorama student survey, and the top 3 areas are for the fall and the rest are things that we need to focus on based on, past surveys. So,
Any other questions for Mike? Okay.
thank you.
Carrie, are you,
Yeah.
you want EduClimber up? Is that the best or?
I put it on this.
Okay,
I don't
got
think
it.
it's
No,
included in yours.
Great.
I don't think it's in there.
It's not in here?
I don't think so. And that's not the right dashboard.
Okay. Tell me which one I gotta.
Sure.
Let's go back. Let's go really far back.
Oh, go up one, I think it's that one right there. Nope, that's wrong. If you click on year on the left-hand side there, you can click on current year right there and then, well, maybe I didn't share it with you. Because that's not right either.
Okay.
Okay, anyways, I have it written down here anyways. So in terms of student behavior at Bessie Allen, we use both majors and minors similar to what FLC does. And currently, less than 2% of our students have had major behavioral referrals. This is actually up from last year at this time, both in September and October. However, our minors have decreased this year, and we have less than 2% of students have had a minor behavioral referral. And like I said, those, we saw a decrease in those. What we're seeing typically for both the majors and minors are disruption or defiance and disrespect are the two biggest behavior referrals that we receive. So what we would like to see happen is that our students feel more, again, you're gonna hear that engagement word, more engaged in class so that they're less likely to be disruptive in class, because that's typically where those behaviors occur. And if there's less distractions, then there's more academic learning that's going on during that time. So currently, we have already provided the students and their families communication, and we think it's really key with what those expectations are for our students when they're in our school, when it comes to behavior. We're trying to create a safe learning environment for our students as well. And then we're constantly reevaluating what our policies are and kind of taking a look at the data to see if there's any specialized groups for reteaching that we need to do with our students. Like Mike had said regarding the social emotional learning lessons, some of those are geared towards that cultural playbook, as well as teaching our students how to manage their emotions, because typically that's when the behaviors come out, when their emotions are not managed. So teaching them those skills are ways that they can do that. So those are what our goals are. Questions on behaviors?
Yes, I'm not sure if this is the right place to ask, because I know we put the new cell phone policy in. And I was just wondering how that's going, as far as enforcing it, and are you seeing benefits for that?
So we'll talk about that at the high school level, because the middle school level, it's always remained the same, that the phones are supposed to be in the locker. We actually, at the middle school, I think I've had 1 or 2 cell phone violations so far this year, which is actually very impressive compared to last year. And so we're seeing great results with that. And we'll talk about the high school level of where those are at. But good question. Okay, and for attendance, see my sheet here. So we are currently at a 93.52% attendance rate. And comparatively to last year at this time, it was a 95.68%. Now, we were hit again this year with like the whooping cough and things like that. So those are included in, medical excuses are included in our attendance rate. And so we have seen a significant number of students out with those things, which is what I believe is probably what's playing a factor in that change. So that's it.
Good.
Any questions?
Is that percentage common among typical high schools of like our size or our urban area?
Well, this is the middle school.
But yes, that is typical. You will see as students move through all the schools, you will see that decline. You have a better percentage rate when they're in elementary school, and then you see it drop off a little bit in middle school, and then in high school, you kind of see it take a little bit more of a dive. So, all right, thank you.
Go ahead.
Saturday, possible elimination.
Yeah, there you go.
Right, so unlike the elementary and the middle school, similar to last year, we continued our SLO from last year. So big shout out to Jen on that last year. We kind of put our brains together. We used
Jen's getting a lot of shout outs. Let's give her a shout out now. Yes.
Last year, coming in, we didn't really have a ton of data at the high school. Is a piece we struggled with. They didn't do the STAR testing except for special education. So at the high school, we were kind of just pulling at strings a little, but then we did the practice ACT. I know Adam helped us set up that last year, just kind of give that baseline for us there. And then what we did there is we operate under the premise, we took ELA. You need to be able to read, write, and communicate to be a successful human, and that'll drive all other content areas. So last year with Jen working too, we used a mixture of like some retired ACT questions and also looked at the themes of those to focus in on word meaning and vocabulary expansion for students, because by doing that, it'll help bridge their ability to read, write, and communicate. And then knowing Mike now too is taking on ELA focus too. Just kind of as that cycle continues, that's gonna only help us a little bit here. And I'll talk a little bit to how we're maybe changing a little next year moving forward. But we kept the same SLO as last year, so that focuses on, again, word meaning and vocabulary usage. We just finished up our fall baseline data on that. So we made all students grades 9 through 12 complete this. It was 14 questions. I know Lauren had stated this earlier. Sometimes I feel we do over-assess at times, so we want to make it something that's manageable and a little bit easier that we can do at our own pace. So freshmen, 47% answered correctly. Our goal for the year on our end of year, we'll also do a mid-year in the winter. I can report on there too, 65%. Sophomores are at 48. I kept that the same at 65%, going pretty similar. Juniors were 53%. Our goal is 70, and then seniors, 56% with the goal of 75. And then also the nice thing in doing all 4 grade levels now, as an entire high school, our baseline is 51%, and our goal for our entire building at year's end is 68%. And last year, I know we set the bar, I think, grossly low. I think this is a lot more realistic based on last year kind of launching that assessment tool of our own out of the gate there. So a few things we do action step wise with that. So again, fall assessment was on the 14th. Next one's in January, and then the end of year is in early May. We bumped it to early May. I know Jen and I said, holy, we got ACT, pre-ACT, forward, all that stuff hitting that March, April window. So let's give them a little break and fatigue warning on that one to come back. But our focus on it's building wide. So every content area, we understand they teach different vocabulary. So whether it's roots, different bases of words, how they're used, conjunctions of all that. So that was a big piece on our building wide focus on is all staff, so we can lean in on a common ELA goal to boost all students, because let's be serious, reading and literacy is in every single classroom, whether we like it or not. So the big building wide focus on that, big thing that Jen and I have done this year is continuing to bring that back, and last year too, modeling what that can look like, giving new strategies. Staff are now kind of taking ownership on that too and sharing with each other, which has been an exciting growth piece on that. And then as I alluded to a little earlier, beyond this year, we'll start shifting our SLO goal a little bit more next year. We're going to start focusing likely on more of that close reading and annotating ability to help guide our students in addition to this. So this vocab expansion, focus, and meaning isn't going anywhere. This will just be in addition to it next year, because by year 3 of that'll just be part of our universal process. And then fidelity checks, every classroom observation run, they know that we're expecting some sort of vocabulary focus, not necessarily every day, but 3 or more times a week is our expectation on that at the high school. Step 2, our CT work this year, continuing to focus on intentionality, and I know Adam's probably talked a little bit about that too. This year focuses on assessment, and so now we're focusing a lot last year on what is it with our learning target we want students to learn, but now how are we assessing of their learning and for their learning? So that's something we're continuing to layer in, and just continuing to look at the assessment tools we have. And once Ames Web can be implemented at the high school, we'll be getting winter data on that. I know the focus is getting elementary and middle school right now, that Ames Web tool now for their baseline. I was comfortable pausing till winter, knowing we already had a tool in place to guide our building wide. And then 3, just a continuation of those high leverage strategies. It's not something we set it and forget it. We're continuing to circle back. I know next Friday at our next PD day, we're bringing all this data back to staff, entering that and talking about, what are those next steps. And I don't want to leave math out. They are continuing with CESA 6 through their math coaching. So they're working on some of their vertical spaces and small group construction in addition to some of this. Questions on academics?
We did pre-ACT last year, and then that was our first year.
Yep.
Did we see like a measurable of an increase between that and ACT?
So once we get the practice, we did practice ACT last year and this year. So once we get that data back, I'm intrigued to see, last year's freshmen, how did they score as sophomores this year?
Okay.
But that junior class last year, we did see a fair amount of growth in there, I think. Adam, you can correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, we went up
2 points.
Yeah, 2.5 points from the fall to the spring, from our juniors, and the highest average score we've had in our school's history, and almost 30 pluses we've ever had, so.
And there's probably no measurable to know like that growth. We didn't have like a year before where we would know from fall to spring how much we grew.
No.
Okay, so now we have a baseline.
Yeah, this will
right?
be our first year
Right.
with the comparable, so, no,
That's
it's
so
exciting.
great. 2.5 is awesome, so.
Any other academic ones? Then I'll jump into the SEL focus we have. So SEL wise, I know you heard cultural playbook and some of those focuses there at the high school level. Looks a little bit different too, is just kind of guiding in, they're young adults now, so how can we make productive members of society moving forward? So last year we took the panorama data and really dove into what are those pinch points we're noticing with our students that we can focus on. And some of them we're connecting with trusted adults and peers. So panorama data last year, we looked like what students scored extremely low there. And our counselors met with each and every one of those students, and much to our surprise, sometimes it was, I don't need a trusted adult necessarily at school, because I have 3 at home. Or the opposite, like I don't really need one at home, I've got 4 awesome teachers here at school. So it was kind of nice to get that understanding there. We're like, oh, I thought I had to be a teacher. No, my mom, dad are awesome at home, or aunt, uncle. So I think it kind of helped clear up a little bit of that. And then encouraging, promoting just their engagement as a whole person. So I'll always preach to extracurriculars of any sort, get those students those life skills needed and getting them more involved. And I know Jillian will speak in a minute here, but also bridging that gap to get what's your involvement on a positive outlook on life. And then just why students maybe didn't feel they're engaged or willing to engage. So kind of the cell phone point here too. Our engagement data was low. And we talked as a staff towards the end of last year too, what's maybe a piece. Do we have a ton of cell phone violations last year? No, we really didn't. But just knowing that constant disruption that's in your pocket, I mean, I'm sure we can all raise our hand. It's that constant buzzing and, their TikTok, Instagram, you name it, all these different apps are going off in their pocket. So this year we implemented, it's either it has to be in your locker or in the phone pouches. There's one in the back over there in the classroom. And I know our minor data, when Carrie talks about that, did increase significantly this year compared to last, because that first violation of it's a minor, reteach that behavior. And a handful of those were inadvertent. I was sitting down in my chair, I leaned over, my phone fell. Well, should have been in the pouch, so that's a minor. So that was one that we really wanted to address with the engagement. We did see a little uptick. We're gonna dive into the panorama data from the 7th of this month, but I want to get my SEL team on that. We meet this Friday, and then next Friday, Melanie from CESA 6 is helping us do a staff-wide data dig on that too. But for this year, we really focus on their engagement, student safety. I know that was pretty high for us. It was like 96% last year, but I want to get that to 100. Every kid should feel safe coming to school. So what are we doing to address that? So again, action steps really based on last year's data, continuing to focus on that with our SEL team. Our SEL lessons are every Monday during Oriole time, where each teacher universally does a lesson. Like today was on peer conflict. Last year we noticed a lot of our major behaviors, if there was any physical aggression, where quite honestly didn't have some of those interpersonal skills to work with others and cooperate with them. So using that data to continue guiding where we go and ultimately building that sense of belonging. So really focusing on our SEL lessons. And then as we keep going, Kurt Wismer helps with that GRIT program. And we're focusing a lot on E+R=O, which I know event response equals your outcome. That's a big one with the high schoolers that is really sticking right now, as they're starting to see that, like, I got pushed in the wall. Well, how do I respond? Do I just keep walking? Do I go tell someone, or do I fall off and hit them? So we're starting to have those conversations of, well, maybe let's press pause for a second, think about what's the right outcome here. I think that's leading to a pretty good downshift in our major behaviors in our schools. So going there and getting to hopefully some student-led sessions. See where it goes on. Any questions on what we're doing at SEL-wise at high school? Cool, thank you.
Thank you. Jerry, welcome back.
Yeah. And just to piggyback, I didn't say this before when I was talking about BAMs, but one thing that I'm really excited about this year is that we're finally using our own data and applying it to students when it comes to SEL. We're using what our students are telling us their needs are, we're addressing those versus buying a curriculum because this is easy or whatever it is. We're actually addressing and using that data. So that's super exciting. And I think we're going to see some really great benefits from that. And we're already seeing some benefits. So as you can see up here, when it comes to the high school, the major behavior referrals have been down this year significantly in September and October. We've had less than 1% of students receive major behavior referrals. And when I say, which is amazing, and when I say that I think what we're doing already is working, I would say the majority of these major behavior referrals come from other students telling us something is happening. And so they're learning, like, we want to improve our schools. We're not okay with this. So they'll come and tell us, and that's how we get this information. So that's great. Our minors, now we've seen a significant increase. The majority of those are cell phone violations. I would say probably 75% of those are due to cell phone violations. So we're learning as we're going, right, with implementing a new policy. So to answer your question, teachers now, if there's a cell phone violation, they write up a minor behavioral referral, which goes into EduClimber. I either nightly or every other night, I check EduClimber, and then I fill out this spreadsheet that everyone has access to. And it has the student's name, the date of the violation, and then it goes number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, because our consequences are based off of the number of violations. So that if Mike is in my class today and I took his phone and tomorrow he's in Dwayne's class, they can look on that sheet and be like, oh, this is your second violation. Now we have to keep it and turn it into the office versus getting it back at the end of the class period. So, and we just started. Also, we're seeing these come in, we're like, how are teachers knowing what violations? So we just implemented that. And so it's a work in progress. So that's how we're trying.
Second one, they then have to either check in at the office or keep it home. And I think we have less than maybe, 7? If that even.
4.
So
yeah.
Very few have gone beyond even that second violation. So that reteaching, redirecting has been pretty effective with our teachers universally.
Yeah. So again, we're just matching what our students have told us in the past and what our data has told us in the past to try to teach them with those SEL lessons. And we're getting some good results here. And then when it comes to attendance, we are actually at a higher attendance rate at this time this year than we were last year, pretty significantly. We're at a 97.45% attendance rate. And at last year at this time, we were at 87%. So I'm not really sure. I would like to say it's because they love seeing Dwayne and I, but. Yeah, but I'm not, we're doing something right, clearly. They're coming through the door, so that's a great celebration. So our next step is, while they're here, making sure they get to where they're supposed to be on time. That's our next step.
Well, 2 feet. Get in the door. 2 feet in the door. 2 feet in the door.
Yes.
Yeah.
Any questions?
Thank you, Carrie.
Yep.
Great. All right. Jillian.
Right. So from a K-12 activities lens, if you remember from last year, our goal was to try to identify the number of students that are engaged at each level in a co-curricular activity. So we implemented student surveys trying to get their feedback to let us know. We did a baseline in the fall, and then we did another survey in the spring. What we learned in the spring, though, is that our completion rate went way down and we weren't getting anywhere near close to accurate numbers in terms of students participating in co-curriculars. So one of the big things that we're doing this year is trying to identify very accurate rosters by working with advisors and coaches to make sure that we are capturing the students that are engaged in each one of our groups. So this is a work in progress because obviously we have a lot of groups that are actively in progress right now, but we have some that haven't kicked off yet, like forensics, ice fishing, archery. Those are all upcoming. So this is going to be like a year-long process to try to capture all the rosters at the middle school and high school. At the elementary lens, it's going to be a matter of us reaching out to the opportunities that students are engaged in the community because there's not as many school-based sponsored activities. So it's reaching out to Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts and the local dance studios. And are they going to be willing to share that information of students that are participating? So that is a work in progress. I've really been focusing so far at the start of this year, trying to make sure we're getting accurate rosters at the elementary and middle school. And eventually we'll be reaching out to those community partners. The other step that we want to continue to work on is streamlining the process for students to submit proposals for their ideas. You know, we talk about engagements, what gets kids to walk through our doors. It's finding activities or things that they want to participate in. Mike has a great process down at the middle school level, and ideas are always getting run by us. We had an interest just today reaching out about getting a girls running club running at the middle school level, and that's going to be in connection with the elementary. So things are constantly evolving in that space, and so it's really just trying to get out there and find out what do kids want. We will be launching a 4-H club at the middle school level. For those of you that have been around a while, that was really popular pre-COVID. And then COVID happened, it kind of died down. We tried launching it last year, but 4-H was losing their advisors that were working with us, so we were constantly being recycled through different people. We finally got someone strong, we met, and we're gonna do 2 different branches with 4-H. One that's like traditional 4-H that students can work on projects, and one's gonna be through like Hispanic culture lens, which is really exciting to find ways to connect our Hispanic population because that's often a population that's underserved in our community. One of the things that we did capture in last year's spring surveys, we were trying to identify some of the barriers that students may be experiencing that are preventing them from joining some of our co-curriculars. Some of those key things were transportation, and some of them were things that are just miscommunications where they think, oh, I can't pay for that, I can't join. Well, those are things that we need to work on and make sure our communication is getting out there to students that money is not going to be a barrier for you to join. We figure that out. There's a lot of different hardship funds that we can access. So it's just continuing to work with building principals to address the behaviors or the barriers that come up. And then lastly, I think both Lauren and Brad can speak to the struggle with getting like school-sponsored activities started at the elementary level is the human resource that it takes to get those running. Teachers are kind of at capacity, and asking them to run an extra club is hard. And so we really need to establish some partnerships with community organizations that might have retired people that can come and help sponsor an after school or before school or even during a recess activity. And it could also be accessing our families, because I think having worked at all the levels, our elementary families are almost the most engaged families. And if they know there's opportunities, we just have to make sure we're communicating those opportunities that are there that we need help from them. So a lot of things in progress, but I do think by the end of this year, we're going to have a really accurate depiction of the number of students that we have engaged in co-curricular activities. I mean, our goal is to get to 85% of students engaged in an activity. If we can even get to that 70 mark, that's going to be a huge milestone just to get to that point, and we can keep growing from there. Questions?
I have 2 comments. One, thank you for your visual leadership. I can't tell you the amount of people that are in the community that know who you are. I know many of you. Right, wrong, good or bad, right? No. They know because you're there. Like I've gone to different community events and you're always there. So I know that takes a lot of time. So I just want to say thank you to that. And then also, when I look at like our football program, just as an example, from where it was 5 years ago, I know the record isn't always the thing we're looking for. We're looking for like community engagement, a place for the community to go. Like having a cheer squad out there, having concessions going, having someone taking tickets. Like those are the little things that I think go unnoticed that it makes it feel like a real thing. So I know you play a big part in that, so thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good work. Awesome. Chris, you can bring us home?
Yes.
Okay.
So, I have to put my papers here. So we are, again, looking at tracking data for students with disabilities. We really want to improve achievement. This year, we're going to use Ames Web Plus. I'm really excited because we can compare apples to apples across the different buildings. So, and we're going to add math too, because we want to compare those two areas. So the goal this year is 50% of students with disabilities in grades K through 11 will be proficient on the Ames Web assessment. The reason that we don't have seniors involved with that, it's not that they can't take Ames Web Plus, but we're really helping them to focus on what they're going to do for a career, maybe post-secondary, work in whatever they decide to do, or a combination of those. So we're kind of taking those skills and how can you apply those to your future. So I did put here the Ames Web KWKT, that if you want to click on that map, we won't read through the whole thing.
Oops. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to get to it.
Oh, okay, that's all right. I can pass this around too. But basically, this is for the educators, the special education teachers, so that they know that this is the why behind why we're assessing. Because you've heard, there's different assessments. We don't want to test our kids to death, but this is really important, this information, because we can dig down into that data. And we can really identify where are the lagging skills, where do they need some more support. And then that just ties in with our action steps. So that's the first one, is taking the Ames Web. Now, we're not going to have that in the fall because I was looking at the data. We have some pulling in, but not enough right now. But by winter, we should have a late fall, a winter, and a spring to compare. The next thing, we're going to be looking, like I said, at those lagging skills. We're going to drill down and decide what we want to work on, and then we're going to match that with an intervention. So we have a nice bank of interventions. We're really heavy on the literacy. We're kind of light on the math. I actually just ordered one today with one of our teachers. It's called, let's see here. I wrote it down so I would remember to tell you, Trans Math. It's a great curriculum, and it's for middle school, high school, and it's meant to be an intervention, but it also can be used as a curriculum. You can teach a whole class with it. So we're going to use that, and just have to shout out to our special ed staff. They are working so incredibly hard. They are really going above and beyond. They're trying different interventions. They're like, sign me up. I want to be coached. Jen Towell left, but she's been a great helper. Elena Thompson, Tammy Raderman, Margaret, all these folks. We're really getting in front of people and supporting them and coaching them up so that they can feel like, I don't need an interventionist, I can do this myself. So that's where we're at. And then the last thing, we're making a dashboard so that you can see this. So we're creating this, and we're looking at all of our students, like we said, with disabilities across the board. So that's it. Do you have any questions for me? Okay, well, thank you for your support. I appreciate it. I didn't talk about SEL, Matt, but I can. I mean, the principals are doing that. I have my hands in that. I have a little CT team. It's the 4 counselors and the 2 psychologists, and we are going to talk about the panorama data. So I'm part of that, but the principals are the ones that are leading that day-to-day work. Thank you.
Thank you.
If I could have, just before everyone leaves, maybe just a little debrief on like PD Fridays, and for the principals, maybe more or less, just some of your experiences, some of the things that haven't, just so everybody knows, board members I'm talking to, we shifted from like 2 day a week, like Tuesday, Thursday mornings, like 7 a.m. to, 1 day a week, Wednesday morning, 7 to 8, basically, for everybody in the district. And then 1 day a month would be a full day of professional development and learning. And that shift, just because it's a different thing, and I know you all kind of request a little bit of like, how's it going? And I just want to give it to the voice of the principals too. And they've collected qualitative data for the most part, just seeing what their staff has been saying about it and some of the stuff that we need to work on yet too. But I'm just going to turn it over to you for a little bit of session so anybody can pipe up first.
Like high school wise, I speak from, we send out every Friday, we've had 1 to 2 so far. Julie and I have sent out just give us a reflection of what's one thing that went well, one thing you'll apply, what was the pacing, enough breaks, just some of those other things because it's easy to get long-winded. And our overall structure the first few hours of the morning are really focused on some of those just-in-time things that we're doing building-wide. Like one was getting ready for Prax ACT, just kind of an overview, where we're going with that, make sure we're prepared for that, our accommodation rooms, all that ready. And then also leveraging, I know Jen left, but what are some of those skills we're doing universally for vocabulary work, modeling some of that, working through that piece. SEL curriculum is a big piece in the first one, like, hey, here are the things we're doing. Kurt Wismer actually led them through our whole meter and piece index SEL lesson we were doing on Monday, so we kind of set that up. And then the second portion of the morning has been a big focus on how are we collaborating amongst our colleagues, so whether that's our multilingual department or special education with Gen Ed. But our data's been good. They've said it's been purposeful. Pacing's been good. The big one I always look at is there something we gave you today we can apply tomorrow? So that's the biggest thing that has been a positive with their staff at the high school, at least, is we're giving them things that are relevant to them, because I know as a professional, I sat through some PD Fridays where you walk out and question what was the purpose in that entire day that I spent there, and I could have been with students or whatever. So it's been good. I think it's been meaningful and beneficial for staff.
Thanks, Dwayne.
So how does that compare to the shorter sessions that we've done in the past? I mean,
it's off because I through more. That's saying before last year, the 2-week egg, 2 early mornings becomes kind of that pressure point on staff when they're working the hoops game the night prior, coming in then at 6:50 for our meeting. So for us, we know we can work at a slower rate in a sense to make sure they can digest it, and most importantly, give them time to plan and process how to apply that to their reality moving forward. That's one of the biggest thing I think they've appreciated is the pace is just way more feasible in the sense of what we're doing is applicable, but then they have time to process and actually apply it. So for me, even for planning that, like I know I'm going heavier once a month with staff on some maybe bigger topics, and you can really lean in and be a little more intentional on what we're doing. And for me, it's awesome. I get to practice what we're preaching in the classroom, clear targets, what do you want them to learn and achieve? Well, here's the desired outcome, here's what we're doing, and we're gonna get through it together. So that's been way better. And personally, I like only waking up bright and early.
And as a staff member, I would say that you're more present, if that makes sense, on the Fridays versus like in the morning. The last year when we came in the morning, I will admit, I'm thinking about, okay, I gotta get this done, so I have to think about, this is what my day's gonna look like, that I wasn't necessarily present in the moment in the learning.
do you share like an agenda with your staff prior to, so like they can be thinking about, oh, this is what we're gonna cover?
We don't give them at all, not just.
Yeah, well, right, yeah.
We have a lot of teachers out there.
Fun stuff.
There's a few I just have to drop.
Right. These big topics.
Yeah.
For like outside partnerships too, so when we had reps from Amplify come in, we had a whole day that we could work with. So for example, we had our K2 staff have that training in the morning and then 3-5 in the afternoon. With just an hour in the morning, that would be nearly impossible to make that happen. So I think like for those outside partnerships, that's really powerful. And a piece that actually, like I've been reflecting on lately, is we have a ton of paraprofessionals who run our before and after school care at FLC. So those mornings were almost impossible for them to be a part of any of that work. So the overall, I think, feel, like FLC specifically, I can speak to, our paraprofessionals feel included and that they're a part of the work that we're doing, and they're able to be at some of those co-planning conversations which I think is incredibly powerful because they play a huge role in all of the work that we do. So even getting feedback from that population has been, I think, something that I don't even know that I was thinking of when we were thinking about this last year.
Ben staff has reported that they really love the flexible time plan for a wide range of things. It's not just student engagement and learning, but also building-wide plans and goals. It's an allocated time once a month that they can focus and, like Dwayne said, dig deeper into things and come out with things that they can apply in practice. The co-plan and co-serve time, that's like 2 hours, 9:30 to 11:30. The last couple of times that we've had professional development, our special education teachers and our multilingual teachers met with each grade level teacher to review the plans and the accommodations and modifications that are happening and not happening for certain students. So it's kind of holding each other accountable and also trying to lean on each other to help students in those areas. And one thing that we haven't mentioned is that we do incorporate 15 minutes of wellness for our staff so that they can do it together or do it separately, it depends on their option. 15 minutes during the morning or in the afternoon, or they can just take a walk or like do something that's like a hobby that makes them get back into the groove or get centered again. So those are the positives that our staff are indicating. And I'm reading it from the Plus Delta sheet that they gave.
We've had some good pickleball lunch. So there's been some good ones.
Mike, A deltas, you got, I mean, I don't, it's always good to, I mean, notice some of those things too.
The delta from the last professional development service, and I'm reading it wrong, is the first 30 minutes in the gym for cultural playbook. They're questioning if that was the proper setting. Not so much what we did, but just like, could we find a more intimate setting than that?
Sure.
But that's the only delta I have from last year.
Our deltas have just been 7 a.m. is really early. But in general, I think people appreciate the time that they know they're getting on the back end, and it's
Right. Thank you all for actually, sharing your story and your narrative because it's so important. And we don't always get a chance to see like what's going on underneath, and there's so much intricacies that are happening. And it's good that obviously the board gets to hear this too, and then hopefully other people are watching too as well, so they can see the work that you all put in every single day. And it's obviously it takes a full team to really make the magic happen, and really appreciate you and appreciate your time tonight with us. So at this point, if you're having to get to another obligation, Brad, I'm gonna just ask you for like 2 seconds on digital mapping update, just for everybody. But other than that, if you need to at this point, you can be on your way.
All right.
John's leaving too.
Thank you all.
Brad, do you just want to give us a quick update, like on the digital mapping level? And I'm just shifting to security, so you can move out of here as soon as we're done with this too as well.
So we went through the process with GeoCom. GeoCom is the company that we went with. Took a little bit of maneuvering and just trying to figure out, what companies can be best for North Fond du Lac. And it took a little bit. We had to do some research with GeoCom. We came to, and just they're a good company to work with in terms of what we were looking for and what they could provide. So, it took a lot of work this summer, actually spring, writing the grant, getting to that point, and then, being delegated, we had that money from the state, which was a huge opportunity. And then looking at next steps is getting GeoCom on board, and then this summer, looking in early August, having them come and walk every single school, every single nook and cranny to map that. With some of our new additions and those things, which are great, but none of those were maps. We didn't have maps that were up to date, so to speak. So we have all our maps up to date. We are validated now. We're good to go. We're working through a little bit of the final process of making sure how they're going to go to now PD and our fire department so that they have access to those other SOS systems. So in the event that if someone injury or somebody, a 911 would call, would come from the library, it would know exactly where it is. It would pin it right on the map. So along with those maps, we have just all our AEDs are labeled, fire extinguishers are labeled, just different points of interest that we have. We just purchased 5 stretcher boards for our second floors here at Horseman and at FLC. So we have a lot of adults in our building.
So that was actually something my kids just brought that up to me today. They're like, what are we getting all these structured boards for? And I was like, well, let me find out.
So, yeah,
There you go.
actually just got them up over the weekend here.
So does that come out of the mapping process though? Or
It doesn't, this is more or less like how do you, like, part of the mapping is identifying where are those places. So right now, part of our safety meeting tonight was talking about what are we gonna call them, how are we gonna label them, so our fire department can like, hey, if we're in lift area 1, that means we're at FLC, the first area. Like, the event that we have parent-teacher conferences coming up, we have other things where adults are in the building that if we would have a fire or lose power or need to get somebody down, we don't necessarily have the capability of doing it. We have these little slings that we have for little kids, but we don't have adult stuff. So we have some big high school kids and some other special ed kids that will be entering into the buildings, and just having that in process and in place is going to be really important moving forward in the event that something would happen. So that's a big part of it, but it's small things like that also get mapped. That our fire department and our police department know, like, hey, these are things in place that we have in our district that, hey, if you say, hey, can you meet us at lift area 3? Like, they're gonna know where that is, because it's gonna be on the map. Yeah. So, I mean, these are key time-saving things where, in the past, you're having to really try to communicate that in odd ways, however that may be, cell phone map, but now they're gonna have that information before we give it to you with these mapping. So, super excited for that to just kind of roll out a little bit. They're redoing a little bit of an evacuation, so we have, if you're in our buildings, a lot of the maps and those things are a little outdated in terms of where we go for fire drills, how we get out, evacuation plans, tornado. Those will all be updated hopefully by the first of the year as they roll out this new evac kind of template. So that'll be a big piece too, and updating all those. And yeah, just keep making changes as we go. And the most important part is that connection with our local PD fire department. So, Jake and Pete, they're pretty excited about that in terms of that access and the availability to know exactly where to go. So that's always been, I guess, since I started, our goal is to continue to have that relationship with them. And now we can't keep them out of our schools, which is great. But it's just want to continue that relationship, and that's all part of it. And, I really do think, the digital maps and GeoCom has done a good job of answering our questions, and we've had a few hiccups, but they've been pretty responsive with that.
We all have access to that. So,
if you would like access to that, let me know. I'll throw your email on there, the admin, you can take a look at it.
It's pretty sweet. It's like I would say Google Maps on steroids a little bit, and then you can see exactly where things are at in our whole building, all our buildings, which again is going to make it so much more efficient for fire rescue, police, everything else. And that's the biggest worry, that a lot of these people come in, they're blind. They have no idea where things are at for the most part. This way, if they have access to that immediately before they even get here, then it saves so much time.
We keep working with them too. I mean, I keep learning from them as well. There's critical access points and things like that we haven't even thought of, like if somebody's hurt or we have so many people hurt, like where are we meeting? Where's that, central spot? And just working through some of that stuff to be, very proactive. So.
Will it be public facing also, like on the website or public?
No,
I don't think so.
Just because of safety reasons, we really don't want people to know ins and outs of our buildings. That's, typically, it's one of those things where you walk into the museum, you see the map, it's great. The school, you typically don't want that, unfortunately. You really want it to be just kind of that internal access and knowing that this is what it is. It would be, we can look at other types of maps we could probably put on there, but not ones that really define, like, hey, here are the cameras, here are, fire extinguishers, things like that.
Sure. Okay.
And then just so everybody knows too, that with the grant, everything was paid through the grant. We were able to negotiate a 5-year deal with these individuals. So that's huge. So we don't have to think about it for a while, but they're going to be our partners for the next, 5 years working through this.
Yeah, no, like I said, if you want access, let me know. I can access. It's just it's a really great tool and something that I think we needed in the district, and excited to move forward with it and see where it takes us. So
cool, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for taking a couple extra minutes with us. Appreciate it, Brett.
Yeah.
Alan.
Get the agenda, so I don't know if you need for anything else.
I don't think so. We're all good. Yeah. Thank you.
All right, thanks everyone.
Yeah.
Take care.
Okay. Rolling through. Just want to update. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but I had the privilege to go to ASCD, which is basically Administrators and Leadership Conference for a national conference. It was in Nashville. I got asked by CISA 6 reps who about a year and a half ago, I was like walking by them at the state board conference, and this woman's like, hey, and I knew her, and she's like, hey, you got to come check this out. And it was this immersion product, and I don't know if you've heard of this before, but basically there's an avatar. The avatar is actually a person on the other side of it, and basically it's a practice zone for complex conversations, because it's really difficult to practice those prior to having with anyone. And what it allows you to do then is have latitude to make sure that when you walk in it, how might you react? What are you going to say? How are you going to walk that through? And then what happens through AI then, it gives you all the feedback based upon the rubric and what they hear within the actual conversation. And then you can watch back everything that's going on, and then they have an evaluator that actually talks through it with you as well. So, but at first when I saw it, I was like, are you kidding me? Like, and I walked right by and said, yeah, whatever, we'll think about it at some point. But then we started, I think we had a session with this woman from ASA who's an administrator. We were doing these like role plays, and we were talking to each other, and like, it's when you know somebody, it's a lot, easier. There's no effect, within it. And so then I thought back as like, okay, I remember that one thing. And so we were able to pull a full year last year with CISA 6. They were coaching our administrators, and they all went through 2 sessions of immersion, and they get to reflect, they get to set goals, they get to go through the whole thing. And then at the end, share out what those themes were. So that's what we went and presented in Nashville with CISA 6, saying, hey, this is an awesome tool. Our people are getting practice. They're getting more comfortable with complex conversations in a way that's unique and it's different. We didn't have a huge crew that was watching us. We were a 4 o'clock slot on a Saturday, but we did have the people that were there, they were engaged, and like they were in conversation, in dialogue. They were asking the right questions. I had a couple of my buddies from a long, long time ago who are consultants and big on the circuit. They came and attended, which was really cool and special to me. I mean, they're writing books I'm reading right now for pleasure, but for the fact that they were in the room was fantastic. Lauren came with too, because she came from the administrator, the principal side of things, and she showed like how it was for her through that process, even though I went through it too, but it was just another good voice to hear that. Then we also ran a person from the audience through the practice, and they actually went through immersion trial during our spiel.
So you get like a scenario.
Yep.
And you're kind of briefed on that.
Yep.
And you just interact.
Yeah, you interact and you just go into the conversation, and what you're trying to do is figure out how you can best support that person. And they have body language, or they'll get pissed if you're not like answering the stuff really well, or they calm down and they're like, oh yeah, I think that's a pretty good idea, and whatever it might be. And that's what you're trying to get them, and you're actually trying to get them to think about the solution without you giving it to them once you get to that point. But and then it was really cool to see all our administrators and how they handle, and everyone handles a little bit differently. So we're using it again this year because we have access to it, because we did this. So all of our administrators will do it twice again. And I am now the coach, so I get to watch with them after each one of theirs and really, kind of evaluate and have those kind of conversations and see where are they at. So it's different. It's not something that's really hot yet, but I think it could be a really potential great tool for, and businesses use this right now. It's not even like something that most businesses are using it, or a lot of businesses are using it. Education just hasn't seen it yet. Yeah. So we get good feedback, and it's just good to get our name out on the circuit too. Like North Fond du Lac, they're like, "Where's that?" And like, you didn't get to explain that, but and to be on the national stage with people, it's a pretty cool thing. So just wanted to share some feedback on it. Any questions you all have on that? And I just feel, honored to get asked to do these kind of things, it's just like, we're doing some good stuff here. And like what you just heard, like there's some amazing work going on here in our buildings, and it's because these people are really making it happen. District tours. We have done this for last few years, and basically it's this idea and concept that does everybody really know what's going on in every like kind of angle of our district? And sometimes you get locked into, like, you teach at the high school, you only know what's going on really at the high school. You have no idea maybe what's going on at the elementary or ELC or Treffer or whatnot. And so the premise is we take staff members from every building, including administrative assistants and facilities folks, and we basically take a full morning now. We used to do a full day. We cut that down because we just felt like it was going too long. We went a half day this time around. It was really well received. We go from building to building. We just share like what's happening in that building, how does it work, what is going on, and just some of those different facts that people might not know. But then they get to watch the people in practice too, or they get to talk to people who are in practice, and they get to learn a little bit more. And we ask them basically at the end, like, what do you notice? What's your wonders? Where are you at? What does it make it? How many of you actually have been in all 5 of our buildings? And it's really interesting because there's only about usually like 25% can really say that they've been in all of the buildings. And the whole idea is just to get them familiarized with, this is more than just your building. This is more than just the high school. This is a full district. We operate together in tandem. So this past time though, we probably got the best feedback we've ever gotten. And I think it partially was because we shortened the day, but we're really getting some like really good insight from folks, and they're even coming up with some good solutions and ideas that can help us too along the way as well. We capture different photos along the way too, so they can capture anything, then they put it in a Google folder, and then we've got that bank now for the last 2.5 years. And we'll have 2 more sessions in the remainder of the year. We have one in March, and then, one in January, and then one in May. So 2 more this year. Run through. I think they've been pretty successful. It's just a nice component, and we're maybe about, I'd say 60% through our staff right now of who've been on it. So our hope is to get through everybody, and then we'll reassess of like where we want to go after that. So that's about engagement too. Like we need them to feel like, okay, hey, I see the bigger picture. I want to be part of this. I see these other people, like this is exciting. And it's just interesting to hear their feedback from every little angle that they have.
I think some of what we've seen and we talk about is, and it's not always so obvious until you start to look at maybe some of the progress, but like the 5th graders today are going to be in, BAMs tomorrow,
Yeah.
right? And so it's this connectivity as it goes through, I think is important, and for the staff to be at the forefront of that, to make sure that there's some continuity, right? There is some, the ability to build on it, and you can't affect your scores, by yourself, right? It all has to start somewhere.
And I think before you got on board here too, is like we had silos.
Mm-hmm.
We had one building doing this, we had one building doing this, we had one building. If you notice, like they're all in the same, like somewhat trajectory in terms of like literacy, and they're focused on one specific area and like popping that way. So I'm excited about that, and I'm excited to see how that dial. And when you notice our scores, when Adam brings them back, there is an increase in achievement. Now it's not like significant beyond the roof, but it is a significant, there is change, because I really truly believe that correlation of we're no longer just doing it by ourselves, and we're actually talking shop about how we can best, bring literacy to the components, how we can best bring math, elements to the work. So.
Yeah, I'm glad we're starting to use something like that Ames Web or whatever it's called. 'Cause
agreed.
I was just reading this last week on that Wisconsin Forward exam, how they changed the categories and they lowered the scores in each area. So that trying to use it to compare from over the years is useless.
You can't.
Now.
Yeah.
So it's very frustrating when they do stuff like that.
And if Ames Web, honestly, the only reason we went to Ames Web is because that was one of the assessment pieces that Act 20 you had to take in. So when you're assessing students at that elementary level to see that whether or not they've hit their reading proficiency or not, that's what, one of the, few assessment tools you can use. Now, we had STAR before, right? We had STAR elementary, middle, but we didn't have STAR high. The difference here now, we're saying Ames Webb Elementary, Ames Webb Middle, and Ames Webb High School, which is going to be great because then we can see it all. My biggest thing though is I don't want to over test our kids though too, to a point where, I'm in a district right now where there's a lot of testing where my daughter comes home and says, oh my gosh, I'm testing again today. And we don't want to get to that degree, but we do want to get to a degree where we can actually see and assess and get quick data so we can turn stuff around quick.
Well, if you stay consistent with the tools, you should be able to reduce testing because you're picking a set of tools you're going to stick with. You're not experimenting with 5 different things.
Yeah. And I think you start noticing even Lauren, it says key ideas and details. That's a standard. She's hitting that. That's a specific area where she can just knock out. And then she can choose 1 or 2 strategies that every single teacher can use. And then you do their best. Tiffany said the same thing. Dwayne was in that same thing in terms of academic vocabulary. And then he's going to shift into annotation. So they're all getting into that same wheelhouse. And if they're all doing that, I'm telling you right now, we got some cool days ahead of us. So it's exciting. It's just really exciting. And that's why I get jacked up every time I hear these guys share their stories because we're getting there. So, okay. Referendum update. We're down to the last informational setting this Wednesday night. And then obviously the vote is on Tuesday of next week. So the days are, flipping right by, and feel good that we've gotten out to a lot of different places and got to talk to a lot of different places. It's just, it's been really rewarding and just being able to share a little bit of the narrative and the story. We'll find out next week more about that. The fall musical, I think Louise told everybody, first and second, 7 o'clock, the third at 2 for our kids. And showing a little bit of the You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown. So I just put another promo kick for everybody out there. Come in and check it out. And then future board agenda items, policy updates. We're going to come back to that. So we're going to have the policy committee come back before we probably do our next meeting. So we'll have to figure out on the calendar. I'll work with Jen and work with you all, Terry and Jacob, so we can get that on the board. And then we'll start talking initial calendar discussion for the upcoming school year already, which is crazy, but it's real. We're going to probably the start time is going to be interesting. We might not be able to start that early because we've been just using the referendum in terms of the reason why and the rationale. I love starting before Labor Day. I think there's a lot to be said that, and I think our flow really works really well. The state yet has not given us the power to be local in that area yet. So
I think we should take away though that escalator approach or that stair approach. Of the
3, 4, 5.
I think that really, I've got a lot of great feedback from other parents and the kids. So they go 3 days the first week, how it's set up the last 2 years, and then 4, then 5. I think it just gives a good transition into the full week. So I don't know what that looks like post, the holiday piece, but.
Which then, allows us to end in May, really. So we might not be ending in May anymore. We might be ending in June, depending on if we can work the numbers, but we'll see. So more to come.
Like that. It's always been beginning of June. Sometimes it leaks into the school year. So
Okay, just jump back one quick question about the referendum and the stuff that the meeting you went to, and well, I missed the one last week from being gone, but what was your general sense of the people who attended their questions? Were they negative, trying to, or was there some positive comments and things, especially with the clubs?
I think every club differed, right? They all have a different zone. There's some really positive questions that were out there. And I think both clubs, for the most part, there's some positive things, but there's also some questions about what process we've used in certain things already in the past. And, you just do the best to explain the narrative as well as you can. I look at body language a lot, like, and you can just tell, you know, where people are, you know, kind of at, depending on what you're saying and what you're doing, but I'm not saying that that's what they're going to do, but, for the most part, very receptive. I mean, like, I can tell you right now, at the Optimist and the Lions, like, they clapped at the end of the, you know, the presentation. Now, whether or not where they're at on the thing, it was still awesome that they invited us in to share the story. Friendship, I had a, like, kind of, I was on the agenda, but somehow I was off the agenda. So I basically came in on public comment. And so I shared it then, and it went fine, you know, just sharing the story again. I just went off the pamphlet and did the best I possibly could. And I thought, you know, just relaying the story, they had some really good questions. I mean, it's, some of them were pointed, but, you know, at the same time, I think for the good reason, they want to know and get best informed so they can make the best decision. And obviously the village did the same thing too. They did a great job. I mean, again, I think well received for the most part in terms of the people who were in that room too. So overall, I thought it was I mean, I enjoyed the experience again. And it's so vital. And I'm just so thankful that I got to do that, you know, and be part of that. And regardless, you know, of where we're at.
Did you sense anything with the separation between the concept of the building of these buildings recently and then now we need money, that it wasn't, they're not directly connected really? Anything come up about that?
I didn't hear that. I think the urgency was like really laid out well in the presentation in terms of like why, you know, like, okay, this is how the state funds us. It is what it is. Okay. This is what inflation is. This is what it is. And so with that formula, you're going to see based on what we have, there's going to be a deficiency of funds. Sure. And then also sharing with the public that we're doing this to, you know, cut costs, and here's the cost savings. And then we're asking for what we need. So I think those things have been really a big part of, you know, the share out.
Okay, good. Thanks.
Well,
All right.
I think
Is that everything?
yes. That's
All right. We will move on. We have 4 items on new business. The first one is to consider approval of the resignations as discussed in the closed session. We have 2 resignations, one for Haley Rush and another one for Ted May. So if there are no questions, first off, I'd like to thank them both for their time and efforts, and also would like to congratulate Haley for her bundle of joy at home. So any questions? Otherwise, I look for a motion to approve those resignations as stated.
So moved.
Second.
All right, roll.
Jaeger, yes. Matthew?
Yes.
Keckerman?
Yes.
Hack?
Yes.
Hoffner?
Yes. All right. Our next item is consider approval of adoption of budget revisions, total school levy revisions, and tax rates. And I know we have Maria on the.
Maria, you still with us? Oh, wow. A true player. Yes.
I am here.
All right. Do you want to just like talk about, you all have this handout in front of you?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you want to just walk through those 3 columns and like how we came to kind of what those are?
Sure. And in front of you also, I tried to highlight kind of the why behind why we do this budget revision. And it's because these 2 key pieces of information don't come in until October 15th. So, and that is the state equalization aid and the equalized property values. So once those come in, I need to fine tune that budget a little bit, which is why every October then I need to come to you a week after the annual meeting to do a budget revision right away. So that's what's in front of you now. We've added a column. So this is a pretty fluid process, but we've added a column as of today. And
it says today on the handout, so you can see that in the middle.
Yes, it does say today. It's kind of hot off the press. So the very last column, let's do it that way. I think that's easiest. That is if the, so we need to pass 2 budgets again. We need to pass one if the referendum is not successful. And that is the last column. So nothing really substantial has changed in that column. I just needed to change the levies just a little bit, but the mill rate would still be $8.15. So same concept behind all those numbers. We would over levy a little bit in Fund 39 to maintain that $8.15 levy. So that is if the referendum is unsuccessful. If it is successful, I have those are the two columns next to that. So the second to last and the third to last column. The one that we talked about last week is barred at the top, and that's the third to the last column. That would change the mill rate to $8.31. So up 4 cents from what we originally thought would happen when we started marketing the referendum.
And the reason for that, Maria, again, is?
The reason for that is mostly due to more students. So because we got more students, our revenue limit increased, but our state equalization aid does not move with the students. That is a static. Once the state establishes that, that's what we have to live with. But that means then that pot just grew a little bit, so then we could increase the levy a little bit. So if you remember that diagram, if the equalization aid goes down, the levy goes up. So that's what we were dealing with there. So, so that's what drove that, the levy up by that 4 cents. Basically, it was getting those 22 additional FTE, or resident students. Today, as we were talking, we decided to present to you, what we can do is we can keep that levy at the $8.27 by under levying an additional $42,000, I think it was. So the entire under levy then, rather than it being the $450,000 that we talked about last week, it would be $492,000. It would still give us a balanced budget. And again, it would keep that message the same, $1.27. And we're also standing behind what we had said, and we're asking for what we need. This is truly what we need.
Does everybody understand it? Like, so like the 831 was last week in case of what we found out from the state. We were just saying like, how might we get it back to that 827? So that's what we've been talking about with our people, and looking at the numbers, we can get closer, right on that by the under levying of that. So that's our proposal right now to y'all in what we have here as far as if it passes. That's what we would say we do.
And if I'm reading.
So,
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, so that would be the choice between the two. It would be either that $8.31 or the $8.27 for if the levy is successful.
John,
We need to do one of those, as well as if the levy is not, or if the referendum is not successful.
Yeah, and then you had mentioned the net gain. Is that where I see if we went with what was last week, it's 100,000 in the black, and then if we didn't, it's 58.
Right.
Am I reading that? Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean,
So we just have to pick one of those two columns, right?
Yeah.
Correct.
I'm a big fan of what we shared with the community, like the 827. I think that's probably an important place to be. And it also echoes what Maria just said about asking for what we need. And that's pretty darn close with, what is it, $23 million budget and only 58,000 off.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Looks good to me. I would echo that.
I agree.
So do we need a motion for?
We'll make a motion. Is there any other questions for Maria first, as long as we have her? Okay, then we would, make a motion to, approve, the adoption of the budget revisions, total school levy revisions and tax rates, the two of them. One of them, which was called out if the referendum is not successful, I'm gonna call it just off its mill rate, just so we know of the 815 mill rate. And then the other one is, if it is successful, the referendum, the column that has the mill rate of $8.27, which is the second to, right side. So I would look for a motion to approve, those two items.
So moved.
I'll second, but then I have a question for in between.
Sure.
Marie, and maybe, in the past, do we need to have these two levy numbers in the motion? I think we've done that in the past, or if it can read.
I think we have had it in the past. Are they the agenda at all?
They're not on the agenda.
Okay, do you want those numbers? Do you want me to give you those numbers? The amounts?
Yes, please. Yeah.
Okay, if it's unsuccessful, it would be $7,288,050. And if it's successful, it would be $7,398,555.
Okay. So should I go back through or read? I'll ask again, maybe just to make sure. Yeah, so to consider approval, adoption of budget revisions, total school levy revisions and tax rates. Unsuccessful with referendum would be $7,288,050. Successful referendum would be $7,398,555. So I'll look again for a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
All right, and then roll.
All right, Humper,
Yes.
Hawk,
Yes.
Geckerman,
Yes.
Matthew,
Yes.
Hager, yes.
All right.
Maria, could you send us an Excel format too, please?
Can Rick get the Excel? Yeah.
All right, next item is consider approval of salaries for school board members. Currently, we have on the agenda, president would be the $1,800. Board member would be $1,600, and then an additional committee member would receive $250. That's annually. And that is what the current rate currently is, for the current year we're in. So, I opened it up for any discussion. I know we had discussion last time, so this is revisited on today's, board notes or new business.
Yeah, I'll just, repeat, I think, since we're going out and asking the community for money, and now today we're under levying again by another 45,000, this would just be a nice gesture for the year to forego the salaries and kind of bite into that for the extra $45,000 under levy, but that's just my opinion, so.
So one of the things that I think I wanted to talk through a little bit more is like, why should we take a salary, or what, you know what I mean? And so like having a dialogue on why should there be an incentive financially to be on the board? And I mean, we're not talking about, big dollars, but I just think it's something that we should consider. And one of the things, I mean, I'll throw it out there, like my seat on the board came up, and there wasn't a ton of interest, not that that was in play or anything like that for my decision to, raise my hand, but, looking into the future, is that going to be something that does incentivize someone to be on, to raise their hand and be a participant in the board?
Yeah, I was wondering kind of the same thing. I mean, I have no problem either way. Really, it's not something that I thought about at all when I was getting into this and wanting to be on the board. It's not, that didn't play a part in it at all. The only concern I have, I guess, is how long is it off for, and like down the road, does it got to be voted back on, or I don't know how that works, I guess.
Comes up every year, so at the annual meeting every year.
Every year that you, okay, but, okay.
So every year you have a chance to change it.
I guess my thought is that, on the one side with the referendum, it's minimal amount as far as, we're not asking to we're not raising our salaries by passing this. I calculated right, it's, I think, 3/1000ths of 1% of the total budget of the district. I don't think the community would, is gonna get up in arms that we're paying ourselves $1,800 for the time involved and stuff like that. Again, we do this, and every board member since I've been on, we do it for community service, not for cash. But it is a tradition, a nice tradition. It's always been pretty much within a couple $100. I think one time at an annual meeting, a well meeting, citizen raised it, made a motion to raise it, I think $100 or maybe $200. But otherwise, throughout the years, it's always right here. For that same reason, we don't want to be raising our salary. I think it's almost universal. There's districts that don't pay the board members. Many pay by the number of meetings, so much a meeting throughout the year, and some have set like this. I don't know, I think because of the tradition, I guess I don't see any reason to change it. Again, I wouldn't vote to raise it, certainly, and that's not what the motion's asking for, so.
Yeah, and I kind of echo some of what you just said, Steve, and others as well. And I think that's when you look at it, that's a personal choice for that board member. There is a process if they would like to forego their salary as well. So that's always an option to all of us, just for an informational purposes. But I also think just to exactly what Steve said, I don't think anyone on this board, and I don't think anyone saying this on this board, is here for the paycheck. We're here to help the community grow and, see those results we just saw. And so I think it comes down to a personal choice, and I'm going to make the motion to consider, and as a first motion, to consider what we currently have here.
If that's the formal motion, I'll second it.
Okay. And then roll call?
All right, Geckerman,
Yes.
Hawk,
Yes.
Hunter,
Yes.
Yeager, yes, Massey?
No.
All right, our next item is consider approval of a line of credit not to exceed $850,000 at a rate not to exceed 5.95%, contingent upon unsuccessful operating referendum. So Matt, did you want to share a little bit about that?
Yeah, Maria, I'm going to turn it back over to you for just a second on this one. Go ahead.
Sure. We have done this for several years in the past since I started, really. In the last couple of years, I didn't feel we needed the line of credit. But if the referendum is not successful, I want to make sure that we have funds available in order to bridge a gap between revenue streams. It does get very tight the last payroll in November because we don't get our first aid payment until the first Monday in December. So it does get very tight for a couple of days. To the point where we're holding bigger checks back to make sure that we can get that payroll done. So this would just kind of give us a safety net if we were to need it. We've never needed to draw on that line of credit in the past, but it's good to have it in place in case we do. The cash flow analysis is at the bank right now. They're reviewing it. But I just want to make sure that we have the go ahead from you. It would not be more than $850,000, and Josh over at the bank thinks it will come in less than 5.95%, but it would be the max, and it would be for 1 year.
So if you needed to borrow that, and if it was 5.9%, what would that interest number come to, do you know?
It depends what we borrow. I mean, I don't think we would need the $850,000. So it would depend on what that borrowing amount is.
You said it'd be a short period?
Yeah, and it would probably be a matter of days that we would use it and pay it back when we get our aid payment.
So you're talking minimal interest, is that what you're saying?
Yes. Yes. Yep, it's, the interest rate is a little higher on a line of credit than it is a full-blown loan, but we don't need it. We won't use it. And if we need $100,000 of it, that's all we'll take, and we'll pay it back when we get our aid payment. The cash flow analysis right now is showing that we won't go negative in November, but it will be close. My comfort level is not there, you know, that level. If anything goes wacky with our budget, I just want to be prepared for that.
I think it's been pretty common over the years, and like you said, we've never had to go use it, but it was there if needed for those short few days.
Yeah, yeah.
No, I mean,
Yes.
that's fine. My only concern was if the interest number was gonna be large, do we have that in the budget? But if it's a minimal interest, then that's fine.
What would
Yes.
the maximum duration be? Because I mean, we could just, if the maximum duration would be a month, let's say, then it'd be like $4,000.
Yeah, and I don't even anticipate it being that long. Like, our payroll is at
That's right. So, yeah.
and our first aid payment is the first Monday of December. So we're talking a week. But we would have, it would be in place for the year. It's just, I don't think that we would need to draw on it except possibly in November.
Okay.
And that would be like if insurance all of a sudden goes through the roof, you know, something unexpected, that we have to pay back some pretty hefty claims, but even those are coming in a little lower now, so I'm pretty confident we won't need it, but I just want to have that in place in case we do.
Okay.
All right, any other questions? All right, then I'll look for a motion to consider approval of line of credit not to exceed $850,000 at a rate of not to exceed 5.95%, and it's contingent upon unsuccessful operating referendum. I'll make the motion.
Second.
And roll.
Kickerman,
Yes.
Jaeger, yes. Humphrey,
Yes.
Hawk,
Yes.
and Methane.
Yes.
All right, that is our last item, so our meeting is adjourned at 9:08 PM today. Thank you, Maria.
Thanks, Maria.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night, Oriole Nation.